Today we're going to discuss a very ancient story, yet one that is guaranteed to strike a deep chord in your heart. Through this tale, we will take a hard look at the most fundamental, yet also the most destructive, emotion within the human psyche: jealousy. Of course, it's not just about examining it. More importantly, we must find the profound wisdom to transform this emotion. To begin, let's ask a question that might sound a little shocking, but is absolutely central. What kind of power allows a person's heart to remain completely calm and unshaken without a single tremor while their body is being dismembered? Their hands, feet, even their ears and nose are being cut off in such extreme agony. What do you think is the most likely answer? This is the core of the story we are going to tell today. The story has two main characters. One is a sage of forbearance, Yuan, who is diligently cultivating patience in the deep mountains, and the other is a king named Colin, who is power-hungry and consumed by jealousy. Their encounter is essentially the ultimate test of human nature, the spark of jealousy, King Kalinga's test. The story begins one day when King Kalinga brings his consorts and palace maidens to the mountains for an outing. Tired from walking, he takes a short nap. When he wakes up, however, all the maidens are gone. He follows the sound of their voices and finds them all gathered under a tree, listening with rapt attention and devotion to a sage giving a sermon. Seeing his own people reverently attending to another man immediately ignited the flames of jealousy and fury in the king's heart. There's an interesting point here. The questions the king asks are quite sophisticated about the four formless meditations and the four immeasurables. This shows he's not ignorant of the Dharma. He understands it. Yet, he uses his knowledge not for learning, but as a weapon to scorn and challenge the sage. The sage honestly and humbly admits he has not yet attained these states. This modest attitude, far from appeasing the king, was like adding fuel to the fire, instantly escalating the king's contempt into uncontrolled rage. The ultimate test of forbearance, completely governed by his fury. The king draws his sword. He asks the sage what practice he is perfecting. The sage replies, "Forbearance or patience." "Fine," the king sneers. "I will test just how much you can bear." With that, he severs the sage's arms. He asks again. The sage, his face unchanged, still says, "I practice forbearance." The king's brutality escalates. Next, he cuts off the sage's legs. Finally, he slices off the sage's ears and nose. But consider this. Throughout this entire ordeal, the sage's heart remained composed, utterly unchanged. This is a truly astonishing contrast. The king used a sharp, mundane sword to cut the sage's physical body. But the sage, in that very moment, made a powerful vow. "When I attain Buddhahood in the future, I will first use the treasured sword of wisdom to sever the three poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion within your heart." This was not an act of revenge, but an act of compassion that transcended all limits. To prove the authenticity of his forbearance, the sage declared, "My blood shall turn into milk, and my body will be restored to its original state." No sooner were the words spoken than the miracle occurred. The ground shook at the sight of this astonishing phenomenon, and it finally crushed the king's monstrous arrogance. Terrified and utterly consumed by fear, he immediately knelt down in repentance. The inner Kalanga, a psychological diagnosis. The story is told, but your true exploration has just begun. Why would a king who understood the Dharma commit such atrocious acts? Now, let's look at the master's incisive diagnosis of the king's psychological state. Many people believe jealousy is a sign of strength. The opposite is true. The root of jealousy is inner weakness. Think about it. When the king saw his own people listening with total devotion to the sage, a level of obedience he could not always command, the resulting sense of inadequacy and inferiority immediately morphed into jealousy. Due to his extreme selfishness, he could not bear for anything he considered mine to be shared or focused on another. Observe the rapid pace of this psychological breakdown. If we don't catch a jealous thought at the start and allow it to develop, it quickly becomes contempt and disdain. Then, we become increasingly angry. And when that fury reaches its peak, the person can lose all reason and commit utterly crazy acts. This pattern, in different forms, can play out in all of our daily lives. You might think the king is truly monstrous, but the next analysis may be even more unsettling, because this ancient story is, ultimately, a mirror, and what it reflects is our own inner self. Let's look at a comparison chart. In terms of Dharma knowledge, Many of us might know just as much, if not more, than the king. In terms of the bad habit of jealousy, we, true, are deeply rooted. So, where is the critical difference? The master says there is only one key difference: power. The king had the power to commit that immense, monstrous crime. Many times, we simply don't have the opportunity or the power to go that far. This is where we must be most vigilant. We may not literally take a sword to people, but we use the exact same jealous heart in our families and workplaces against our parents, partners, or friends to speak hurtful words and damage relationships. The inner driving force is identical to that of King Kalanga. Slave or master, the choice is ours. Since the King Kalanga resides within each of us, what should we do? This brings us to a crucial choice. Are we to be like a slave, passively accepting suffering, or like a protagonist, actively creating our own destiny? The master distinguishes between the slave mentality and the master mentality. He says that we ordinary people are heavily burdened by a slave mentality. It's hard to change proactively. But if we're thrown into a prison or dragged into a suffering realm, no matter how great the pain, we have no choice but to passively endure it. Awakened beings, like the Buddha, are unwilling to wait for that point. They choose to proactively confront and transform everything, becoming the true masters of their own lives. So, here is a question worth deep reflection. Why must we wait until our karma manifests, until we are forced into a corner, to endure that suffering? Why can't we, like the sage of forbearance, start now to actively and consciously cultivate our minds and change everything? The path to mastery, planting good seeds. How do we become proactive? The concrete path lies in fully understanding and practicing the law of cause and effect, personally planting the future we desire. The best way to counteract the poison of jealousy is to practice the virtue that is its complete opposite. When the impulse of jealousy arises, we practice generosity DNA. When anger comes, we practice forbearance Gnanchi. The reason Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are great is that they are willing to give all their best to sentient beings. As a result, the more they give, the more they receive. Conversely, jealousy ultimately leads only to continuous loss and a feeling of scarcity. Finally, let us conclude today with this powerful sentence. When you and I, when every single one of us, truly understands how cause and effect operates, the script of destiny truly returns to our own hands. The only thing we need to do is focus on the present moment and diligently plant benevolent seeds. Like a farmer, you just have to cultivate and nurture well. As for when and how you will harvest, don't worry, nature will have the best arrangement. This is the essence of focusing only on the cultivation, not on the harvest.